had a nice holiday weekend. We have a lot making the rounds today, and here to help me break it all down is the co-host of PBS's In Principle, Amy Holmes, along with Rolling Stone magazine contributing editor Joe Levy. Morning to you both. So we begin with a story that hits close to home today. NBC News chairman Andy Lack has released a memo on how our news division handled early work around the Harvey Weinstein story, being reported by Ronan Farrow last year. The story, ultimately published by The New Yorker, with several women on the record who were not a part of the draft Farrow presented to NBC News, that's what NBC is saying, effectively started the Me Too movement. At least one critic says that Andy Lack's letter defending NBC's decision to not pursue the story opened the door for more questions than it answered. And some people involved with the early reporting here at NBC are now pushing back on this statement, saying there's much more to this than NBC is saying. NBC's Kate Snow takes a look at the report released by Andy Lack detailing the facts as NBC News management sees them. Watch.
This morning, NBC News addressing the controversy. The network's chairman, Andy Lack, laying out what he says are the facts around former reporter Ronan Farrow's NBC investigation of disgraced movie mogul Harvey Weinstein. In an email to news employees overnight, Lack writing in part, contrary to recent allegations, at no point did NBC obstruct Farrow's reporting or kill an interview, calling it baseless speculation that some interference by Harvey Weinstein played a role in our decision-making. An internal report attached to the news employee email describes numerous calls and emails from Harvey Weinstein or his attorneys to NBC News executives. They were aggressive and persistent, the report says, and had no impact on the editorial process. NBC News also lays out a full timeline of Farrow and his producers' work on the story for the network, saying a team of 3 NBC News veteran journalists examined the story at the time and determined it was not ready for broadcast. They also found an example that NBC News says shows the extent to which Farrow had unfortunately misrepresented the material he had and misrepresented a source's willingness to identify Weinstein. After 8 months, the report says there was not a single victim of or witness to misconduct by Weinstein who was willing to be identified, so it did not meet journalistic standards practiced by major news organizations, including The New Yorker. Farrow left NBC News in August last year, ultimately publishing a Pulitzer Prize-winning print story about Weinstein in The New Yorker. NBC News says it was Farrow's decision to leave because, as Lack puts it, Farrow did not agree with the journalistic standards practiced by NBC News, and he said a print outlet was ready to move forward immediately. In a statement overnight, Ronan Farrow disputes that, saying it was NBC's suggestion to, quote, take the story to another outlet, and I took them up on it only after it became clear that I was being blocked from further reporting. Farrow adding, the story was twice cleared and deemed reportable by legal and standards, only to be blocked by executives who refused to allow us to seek comment from Harvey Weinstein. One of Harvey Weinstein's accusers, Emily Nestor, backed Farrow's account. In a statement to The Hollywood Reporter, she says she had filmed an interview in silhouette, but later tentatively offered either to attach my name to the interview in silhouette or potentially even reshoot the interview with my face visible. However, they were not interested in this interview. NBC News repeatedly states in the Lack email and report that Farrow did not have a single victim or witness willing to go on the record. In response to Lack's email and the report issued last night, Ronan Farrow's former NBC News producer, Rich McHugh, who recently left the network, issued a statement on Twitter saying in part, I'm not clear how NBC's report can be considered objective and thorough, given I was never interviewed for the report and only learned about it when asked for comment by reporters late last week.
As you heard in that report, NBC News says now that, quote, there was not a single victim of or witness to misconduct by Weinstein who was willing to be identified. Moreover, they say Rose McGowan had refused to name Weinstein, and then her lawyer sent a cease and desist letter in August 2017. Late last night, Rose McGowan and Rich McHugh, the former NBC producer, both challenged that assertion, telling Megyn Kelly today that McGowan did go on the record with NBC in February 2017, after that on-camera interview with Farrow, and that she did name Harvey Weinstein as her rapist. Both McGowan and Rich McHugh say NBC had this on-the-record, off-camera assertion from McGowan for 8 months, long before her letter sent a cease and desist letter, which McHugh says was communicated to NBC executives. In a statement to Megyn Kelly today this morning, NBC News responded as follows, quote, as the interview transcript clearly indicates, McGowan did not name Weinstein as her attacker on camera in the February 2017 interview. The first time Ronan Farrow submitted a draft script on this story was 5 months later, on July 23rd, 2017. If Farrow had McGowan on the record, but off camera before that date and wanted to proceed with airing the story, he did not indicate that to his editors. Within days of that July 23rd draft script being submitted, McGowan canceled the follow-up on-camera interview, and her attorney sent NBC a cease and desist letter revoking all permission to use the first interview. There's a lot to unpack.
Yeah.
But what we're seeing here is Rich McHugh, who just resigned from NBC, who was Ronan's producer on this story, has now gone public with his accusations that NBC, he claimed, blocked the story. NBC vehemently denying that and saying they didn't have anybody. They didn't have anybody on the record who was willing to name him. And Rose McGowan telling us she was on the record, that she was on the record for months and they didn't use the statement. And you heard NBC's saying, if that's true, it wasn't communicated up the line. And now you have, you know, that's a dispute now between NBC and the reporters on the story. But this is getting really in the weeds, and it's getting really uncomfortable.
Yes, and I have to credit you and NBC for discussing it right here in this building today on live national television. Your producers sent me and Joe Mr. Lack's memo last night. I read it, although I think I got a little distracted in the middle part because it was really long. But at the end of it, I thought that this was very notable, that it says, this is a day before Ronan Farrow's piece comes out in The New Yorker, October 9th. Lauren Sivan becomes the first Weinstein accuser to go on camera. She appears live on NBC News on Megyn Kelly today. So I have to credit you, Megyn. I've been at this table with you before when the topic of Me Too has come up, and sometimes I've thought, girl, do you know your bosses are watching? Because you've been willing to report without fear or favor about NBC News and your previous employer. I know it's uncomfortable, but I have to credit you for moving the story forward.
Thank you, Amy. You know, I have to say, NBC News knew that we were going to do this. I had to reach out to them for a statement in response to our reporting and didn't say, you can't. I mean, so to their credit, they're trying to talk about what happened. There is obviously a factual dispute, however, between the parties.
Exactly, and they're trying to put out their side of the story. And one headline here could read, NBC News clears itself.
Yeah.
Have other people looked into this? And it has been suggested that there should be an independent investigation. They have not. NBC executives cleared themselves as well in the handling of the Matt Lauer situation. And again, there was a question, should there be anyone from the outside looking into this? Because we need to talk about context. We need to talk about a broader culture. If we're going to talk about Rose McGowan giving an interview, confirming something, and then retracting that confirmation, we need to talk about Ronan Farrow's reporting a series of stories which included one headlined Harvey Weinstein's army of spies, in which he detailed the kind of pressure Weinstein could bring to bear.
He actually hired Mossad, former Mossad.
That's correct.
Yeah.
Those are the former spies. That's right.
He tortured her.
Yeah.
He tortured her.
And let's remember,
That is the allegation.
you had Ms. McGowan on your show.
I had Rose McGowan on, and she talked in great detail about what this has done to her life. And you go back to when this is, I mean, look, we at Fox News had our own uprising, but really the Me Too movement didn't begin in earnest until this Ronan report and the New York Times report that preceded it by a few days. And these women were scared.
Of course.
They were scared. And you look back at, you know, the courage it took to go on camera, even in silhouette, and for me, it's incredibly moving, and I feel the fear that they felt. You know, I can feel it for them.
Anyone would be scared. Anyone with this story to tell would be scared to tell it in public. But these women were silenced and intimidated for years. There were specific actions taken to try to ensure their silence. Sometimes that was monetary, sometimes it was pressure. It almost amounts to blackmail. Threats, right. Right.
Well, and you raise a good point, because now Rich McHugh, the producer of the Ronan Farrow reporting, has said, how could this be a thorough investigation when no one called me? It was me and Ronan. It was the two of us. NBC has said, look, we felt our investigation was thorough because we talked to, the other principals involved. We knew the facts, in other words. Rich had been working for NBC for a year. But there is a question about whether there should be an outside investigator to take a hard look at this. Between the investigation NBC did internally on Matt Lauer to now this, there's the question of the faith and confidence of the public in the reporting of NBC on matters involving itself. And it's, to me, as a lawyer, it's just always better if you just send it outside, and then people can have more faith in it. And if there's nothing to hide, you have no worries about it. You have nothing to worry about. I do want to tell the audience, just to disclose to you at home, my own EP of this show, prior to coming to me, she was a senior producer on the Today Show, and she worked with Ronan for a little bit at the beginning of his reporting, and then it was quickly moved to the investigative unit where she didn't have anything to do with it. But we need to be transparent about who we are, what our roles are, and viewers will understand. I mean, they'll understand. And so we're going to learn more, I'm sure, in the days and weeks to come on this story.
And also remember, with this particular subject, it's really hard to get all these voices together to put that report out. And we've discussed this before, and Joe, I'm sure you know this too, that, even famous women were being threatened by Harvey Weinstein, and their careers could be over in a snap if they said the wrong thing.
Here's the thing, that whatever you want to say about Ronan, he won a Pulitzer Prize for that report. And
we thank
for
him
his
for
reporting.
it.
Absolutely, because this kind of reporting, even though when it first came up, it may have looked weird and it may have smelled weird and it may have seemed unfamiliar, that's the sadness around this reporting. It is unfamiliar. It was for too long because women didn't do this. They just sucked it up and didn't talk about it. And so maybe in the beginning days when it was being talked about, it was jarring and it was tough to believe and it was just impossible to digest. But I think we're now getting to the point where it's, if not familiar, it's much more easily believed. And I think news organizations need to keep that in mind at coming at these stories. You don't believe everybody. That's not our job. No. Some people mislead and lie. But we have to keep in mind that this does happen, and it can be pervasive when we as a news organization evaluate these stories. That's still the last word on it. You guys, thank you.
Thank you, Megyn.
Both. We'll be right back.